afternoon. Can I remind everyone that in line with the legal requirements, this meeting is being held face-to-face, but members can join online and participate at the meeting. For those members of the public present, just confirm that it's only the councillors present that will be taking the decisions at this meeting. Officers in attendance are there to provide advice to the council. This meeting will be webcast and the council will be making an audio recording of the meeting, and this will be published on the council's website in due course. There are no planned fire drills today, so in the event of a fire alarm, please follow the fire exit signs and congregate in the car park. If anybody present might need assistance in exiting the building, please let one of the Democratic Services team know. Members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Your name will be noted, and when it comes to your turn, please use the microphone on the desk in front of you. For members joining virtually, please use the raise hand facility in Microsoft Teams and the chair will invite you to speak. Please only speak when invited to address the council, and please say your name and role before speaking. Can I just request that anybody accessing the papers electronically please uses the updated agenda and reports pack and published agenda supplements, as the page numbers referred to during the meeting will refer to the updated agenda and reports pack. Thank you. Shall now hand over to Councillor Prior Sankey to call for nominations.
Send you a message. Say, what are you doing? Get out.
Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, anybody listening online. It falls to me to call for nominations for the Chair of Council to serve until the next annual general meeting of Somerset Council in May 2024. Bill Revens.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, can I take the opportunity just to say thank you for your contribution as Vice Chair of this Council and Somerset County Council, but also for Somerset West and Taunton Council and all the times you've been Chair on many occasions before. You've been a much valued member of the chain gang I know around the county, and you've contributed so much, and your skills at chairing meetings are exemplary. So thank you so much for everything you do. It gives me great pleasure to propose Councillor Mike Best to be Chair for the forthcoming year. As we all know, Mike is the current Chair of Somerset Council, has been the councillor for Crewe Cairn for a number of years, a former Chair of South Somerset Council, and I've got no doubt he will do an exemplary job for the rest of this year. Thank you.
And do I have a seconder?
Thank you very much. Just to share again my thanks to you, Hazel, and your excellent work you've done, and to second the motion. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No, there are none. Therefore, can we all vote on Mike Best to be the chairman for the next year? Those in favour, please show. Any to the contrary, please show. I see no hands to the contrary. That's therefore passed unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you. I have to read out the declaration. I, Michael Best, have been elected to the office of Chair of Somerset Council. Declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it in according to the best of my judgment and ability. I will now sign the declaration. Just to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of continuing in the role and being able to annoy you for another year. Okay, if we move on in the agenda now, can I call for nominations for the role of Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. It gives me the very greatest pleasure to propose Councillor Lee Baker as the Vice Chair of Council. Lee is an exuberant character who will bring real dynamism to this role, and we're looking forward to seeing that over the next year. Lee's a West Somerset boy. He's well known in the football and cricketing community. Less said about being a banker, the better. And we look forward to him stepping in when Mike is unavailable and taking on some of the civic duties as well. So my proposal, Councillor Lee Baker.
Could I have a seconder? Yes, please, Mandy.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to second that. I would make a panto joke, but probably not the place to do it. But I welcome Lee and his energy and wish him all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more further nominations? If so, could we vote please on accepting Lee as Vice Chairman? Anyone against? Okay, that's carried. Well, congratulations, Lee. If you'd like to join me up here.
Thank you, members. I'll read the declaration. So I, Lee Baker, having been elected to the office of Vice Chair of Somerset Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I'll now sign the declaration. Thank you very much indeed, members, in entrusting me to do this role, and I'll do the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Can I just echo the sentiments that were echoed earlier for thanking Hazel for her support over the past year, and I know she's done a tremendous amount of work for Somerset West and Taunton in her time as chair there. Thank you, Hazel. Okay, we move on to item 3, which is I'm going to invite Stephen to give the apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Jason Baker, Councillor Martin Dimmery, Councillor David Fothergill, Councillor Jenny Kenton, Councillor Tim Curley, Councillor Mike Murphy, Councillor Graham Oakes, Councillor Connor Payne, Councillor Tony Robbins, Councillor Dawn Denton, and Councillor Val Keach. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further? Yes.
Can I please pass on apologies for Councillor Shane Collins?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Susie Hart and Dawn Denton. They are both online, but not with us in the room. And Andy Hadley is actually present in the room. And I think you read him out as not being, but he is here. Thank you.
Does that conclude the apologies? Yes, I can't see any more. Okay, now we move on to declarations of interest. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, members are reminded that if any business of the Council relates to or affects a disclosable pecuniary interest which you have declared, you should disclose it at the meeting not later than the start of the consideration of the business in which you have an interest, or if later the item at which the interest becomes apparent to you, and you should leave the room whilst the business is being considered. You should also disclose any other registrable interests or non-registrable interests as appropriate. Councillors who are also city, town and or parish councillors, your membership of these bodies is set out in the agenda and displayed at the back of the room. Those are taken as being declared and need not be declared verbally. Thank you.
Are there any further declarations of interest that anybody wishes to put forward? I can't see any hands, so if we move now into the next item, which is the Chair's announcements. It's with great sadness that I announce the passing of Councillor Mike Lewis, who died peacefully at his home on Tuesday, the 2nd of May. I would like to welcome this afternoon his son Graham, who's with us for today's meeting. Thank you for attending. Mike was a county councillor from 2013 until the creation of Somerset Council. He was chair of both the audit and the joint waste scrutiny panel, as well as being a member of many other committees. In addition, he was a councillor on South Somerset District Council for the Camelot ward since 2002. He served in that time as chairman and vice chairman of Area East Planning Committee, as well as being appointed to many outside bodies and other committees. A qualified youth worker, Mike had lived in Queen Camel with his wife and family for over 30 years. I worked with Mike on both Somerset District Council and the County Council. He was a hard-working councillor for his community and always someone who played an active role in council. We will truly miss him. Our thoughts are with his family and friends at this time. I'd like to say today, as a mark of respect, as we hold this meeting, the flags, the county flags on all 5 of our buildings have been lowered to half-mast. I would ask you to join me with a minute's silence and please stand. Thank you very much. I would now ask for tributes from members. I know David Fothergill is joined us online. So David, would you like to start, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and hopefully you can hear me okay. Can I start by congratulating yourself and the Vice Chair on your appointments today, and I look forward to working with you both over the course of the next year. And apologies that I can't be with you today. I think many of you know that I'm currently in Dorset carrying out a peer challenge for them for 4 days, and it's a very interesting exercise, but I would love to have been with you. But there's one reason that I would want to join you, and that's to pay tribute to Mike Lewis. And his passing came as a real shock to all of us, and I think out of everybody, I was really taken aback that Mike had left us. So he was a gentleman. He served his community and always put his communities first. We've had numerous conversations about all of his parishes and communities that he's worked for. Most of all, he had a sense of humour. He was a nice man to be with and spend time with, and we all enjoyed having him, particularly in the Conservative group. We enjoyed his contribution and his often sideways looks at things and just giving us an insight that perhaps many of us others hadn't thought of. He was very grounded. He was grounded in his communities. He was grounded in his views. He was just somebody that said it as it was, and really there was no edge to Mike at all. He was a mentor. He mentored many of us, and I think personally I learned a lot from Mike Lewis over the years, and I really do regret his passing. My memory, if there's an anecdote I would tell, was that when I was chairman, we get to do nice things occasionally, Mike. When I was chairman, we had a visit to the hydrographic office, and Mike Lewis came along with us. And at that time, the original Cook maps of Australia were kept there. And Mike Lewis and I remember we were like kids in a sweet shop. We were just so excited to be able to see and to touch these maps from 200 years ago. And I'll never forget that day, and I'll never forget that trip out with Mike Lewis. He is going to be missed by us all. He was irreplaceable. And I send all my condolences to his family, his friends, and to everyone that knew him. For those of us whose lives he touched, we are left poorer by his passing. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Mandy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to add, really, I think David Fothergill's covered a lot, but he was a man, I think, that was respected on all sides of the chamber. He was kind, he was caring, a real gentleman, always polite, but very astute. I know in many of the meetings he was in, he would cut right through and get to the point and ask really good questions that ultimately help this council in the work that it does. He'll be hugely missed. But the last meeting I had with him, he was in audit, he was absolutely on form, and he was doing, I think, what he loved to do, represent, but also to challenge and support the council. Sincere condolences to the family, but I will pass on, because I know there's a lot in this chamber today that have worked with him many, many years, and all will miss him. So I think if I could pass, Chair, with your indulgence, to Councillor Wale, I think he'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I personally am still in a state of shock and disbelief that my friend and mentor, and a mentor to many, many councillors over the years, passed away so suddenly. Having received an email on the day of his passing, as I'm sure many of you did, which said he and Pauline were off to France for 3 weeks and he wouldn't be available for council matters. This made it even more of a shock when the news came through. I know that anyone who's ever had the pleasure of meeting and working with Mike would join me in sending our sincere condolences to Pauline and Graham, who's here today, and his family. Mike was one of life's true gentlemen. David Follingay just said much the same, and it is a much used phrase, but this is really meant for Mike. I don't think in 20 years of meetings and workings with Mike, I ever heard him raise his voice to any great degree, or in fact openly criticise anyone. But when he spoke, he always was listened to and taken seriously. Two of his many strengths was honesty and loyalty. He always maintained that his first loyalty was to the electorate of the towns and villages he represented. He was, of course, a committed Conservative, but that and the group loyalty was never put in front of the position of the people he represented. What I will personally miss most is I used to get encouraging and sometimes congratulatory calls after and before meetings to help me on my way, his steadying hand on the tiller at meetings, and most of all, the after council debrief, relaxing and chatting to a good friend over a pint. So rest in peace, Mike, knowing that you will be missed by many and all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Martin. Bill Revens.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much for those three very moving tributes to Mike. He was a real gentleman, a stalwart and champion for his community. And I always found him to be somebody immensely respectful of other people's views, willing to express his astutely and calmly, and with a dignity that I think we could all remember and learn from. I'm aware that his ward colleague, Councillor Henry Hobhouse, would like to say a few words, so I would like to pass over to him, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I served with Mike in Castle Cowrie for 15 years, and if I wasn't a Liberal Democrat, I would have voted for him. And I want that to be known. He was a true gentleman. Members of the town council were in tears at their first meeting when they heard about his death. I wish to give our sympathy to Pauline and the children who have been extremely good at backing him up. I want to tell a little story very quickly. I know we're busy. At the last town council AGM, Mike was asked to sing a song and did into the microphone and danced with it. I'm sorry to say I'm not capable of doing either, so may he rest in peace.
Thank you. Are there anybody else wish to? If not, again, our condolences go out to the family. And thank you for his son attending today. Thank you. We now move on. You will have all had the circulations of my visits over the past couple of months, which the demise of the district councils have increased a little bit. But what I've tried to do is get out across Somerset to all parts of Somerset to spread the word about the council and to integrate with other people. So if anybody wants to know any detail, if they contact me, then I can give you more fuller details. Unusually, like I said, we've had a question, a member's question from Andy Dingwell, which I'm going to take. So Andy, would you like to take your, put your question?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and again, extend my congratulations as well. So I'm sure, like myself, others in the council were delighted to see Somerset Council engage in a broad range of celebrations for the King's coronation recently. A great chance to see our new branding on various promotional items. I'd like to understand how much, in terms of both money and resource, how much the council has allocated to marking this historic event in our major towns across the county.
Thank you for the question. The only events that the county supported directly by Somerset Council were the activities in Taunton. These activities were initiated by Somerset West and Taunton Council, who began planning for the coronation event in December 2022. SWT was historically responsible for events and the mayoralty of Taunton. It was the only part of Somerset that did not have either a city, town or parish council. As a result, the district council picked it up from 1974. Funding of £40,000 was carried across from the former SWT Economic Development budget. Somerset Music contributed to the production and staffing costs using £4,300 from the £12,000 grant funding it received for Music for Youth to deliver musical events in Vivery Park as part of the King's Coronation Bandstand project. Events such as this in towns in Somerset are usually to be organised by the relevant town councils to mark such a thing as the coronation. Going forward with no district councils, obviously we would revisit things as we go along, but that is the situation regarding the event. Okay. I'd like to just add a couple of things. Henry Hophouse, I'm just going to give the floor for a moment, who'd like to make a brief statement, followed by Sarah Dyke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the ward member, divisional member, excuse me, who had 80% of the flooding that happened on Tuesday, the 8th of May, I wanted to thank the officers of this council for their extremely hard work in clearing up the mess, getting people into hotels and sorting out the problems in my division. The flooding went from Yarlington to Podimore, and the only village that wasn't flooded was Sparkford. Thank you very much indeed, and thank those officers.
Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just want to echo Henry's words and thank everybody who was involved in the response to the flash floods a week or so ago, whether that be the emergency services who were there immediately and to the council teams that followed up in their response to supporting teams, as Henry said, making sure that there are roofs over people's heads and the clear up effort that went in afterwards, but also to the voluntary agencies and other partners, and of course to our communities for their resilience through what has been a very difficult time for many in that particular part of Somerset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to item 6, which is minutes of the previous meeting. To confirm the accuracy of the minutes at the formal Somerset Council meeting held on the 22nd of February 2023, the 1st of March 2023. And is it your wish that I sign them as a true record? Is there any dissent? Sorry.
Just a question, Chair, really on the creation of the documents. Certainly in the first iteration of the various iterations that we've had, the functionality to actually search within the document didn't work. I always like to double check that any reference to what I've said in a meeting is within there. And that functionality wasn't working for some reason or wasn't working wholly. So can I just a request for future documents to make sure that they they work in the way that a PDF is intended, so that members of the public don't have to read through every line. I obviously was happy to do so, but it would be good for transparency.
Okay, I know the officers of the council are listening to this and will have noted your comments. Where are we? Oh, yeah, sorry.
It was just in the last meeting, it said that the meetings are going to be published and recorded, and I'm unable to find the last meeting to the recording of it. Is it on the website? Is it on YouTube? Because we really ought to be, these ought to be very accessible to the general public.
Can anyone provide an answer to that?
We'll find a link.
Yeah, I think we'll have to find the link and then we will let you know. But unfortunately, at the moment, Councillor Prostone.
Yes, I would just like to correct the record that I'm not a member of Ilchester Parish Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Simon Coles.
Yes, Chair. I was rather surprised to see in the attendance record on the 22nd of February that I was not there. I rather thought I was here.
I think the comments made have been noted by the officers and they will be corrected. But hopefully with these amendments, then I can sign the documents, which I will do at the end of this meeting. Okay, if we move now on to item 7, which is public question time. Obviously, you're very aware of the number of questions that we have today. So it's just to remind all of the speakers that they have 3 minutes. And today I will be keeping it to 3 minutes to try and move things along. And also to highlight that all members have seen a copy of the questions. So there is no need to read them fully if you can outline the comments that you make within them. The first speaker is Councillor Matt Harrison. The only thing from the questions, obviously, just a note from this submission, usually we only take 3 questions, but the question in this has been multiple, but this has been talked through with the councillor and he will have his 3 minutes, plus there will be 1 response following. So if you could take the microphone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So firstly, I'd like to thank all councillors and officers for giving me the opportunity to speak. And thank you for stepping up to the plate by becoming councillors in this exciting new Somerset Council. And congratulations on achieving office. The reason for me speaking today is Shepton Mallet has traditionally been, we feel, a forgotten town in a local context. Neighbouring conurbations such as Glastonbury, Wells and Frome have attracted much investment, public and private, over recent years, whereas Shepton has often lost out. For many years, this is partly as a result of self-infliction due to a local town council that was highly partisan, unstrategic, and was often not very collaborative with other agencies. The past 4 years, however, has seen a sea change. The town council has a clear strategic plan. We have a really engaged cohort of councillors, and we've got a great officer team as well. We also have budgets which are clearly aligned to a strategic plan, and we're starting to see the real benefits now. If you've been to Shepton recently, the icing on the cake this year so far has been the installation of our new play park in Collett Park, which has quadrupled visitors to Collett Park. The formation of Somerset Council, the biggest change in local government for half a century, could be seen as a threat. Many people thought that decision making coming out of Shape Mendip and going to Taunton may mean that we become ever distant and the decision making becomes less relevant. But Shepton Mallet Town Council is an optimistic council, and we see a simpler local government structure as a great opportunity for closer working. Closer working, however, can really only happen with clarity and openness. So the purpose, therefore, of me speaking to you today and for sending through the report, which I'm hoping you've all read, is just to lay out our requests that we formally resolved as a town council, and really lay clearly what we believe we need as a town. So today is simply me, as chair, asking you to kindly consider our requests and commit to their consideration over the next few weeks and months and years. And so together, hopefully, we can transform this small corner of Somerset. So once again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you over the course of the next few weeks, months and years. Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping well within your time. Could I ask Councillor Oswijk to respond, please?
My apologies. First of all, thank you very much indeed for coming, or not in person, but online to talk to us today. I'd like to thank both yourself and the Town Council for your questions. It is recognised there are a number of concerns, issues, opportunities, ongoing and, as they say, outstanding things which you have raised in respect of the Town Council and the community of Shepton Mallet. And I do recognise these are very important to the community. We value engagement with all our partners, particularly towns, parishes and our City Council. I'm sure you will appreciate it's a challenge to address each of your points raised in this format and also to do so in an appropriate and detailed way, because I think that is the appropriate response to this. So with that in mind, I can assure you that the relevant councillors and officers will be willing to meet you and indeed your officers and fellow town councillors to discuss each of the points in detail and discuss the possible next steps. I speak also as the leader of the previous district council, and I'm very aware that there are a lot of exciting opportunities for Shepton, and we need to absolutely get these on the table and make sure the community moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Our next speaker is Amanda Miller with problems on Dunstan Park Estate. Is Amanda here or online? Yeah. As Amanda is not present, we will do a written response to this. Yes, Liz.
Chair, may I just offer up a correction on this question? It refers to Councillor Philip Ham, who is not a divisional member for Glastonbury. It should be Councillors Nick Cottle and Susanna Hart.
Okay, thanks for that information. Okay. We move on to our next speaker, which is Loretta Wettler on the B3191 Watch It.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak today. Most of you will know me, but I'm not here as a councillor. I'm here as a very, very concerned resident of Watchet. Back in January this year, Somerset County Council closed the B3191 at Cleve Hill due to the road collapsing, which was a very good thing to do for the road, but not for the town. Since that date, we had another further movement on the 23rd of March. We haven't had any further information, and we just want to know, has there been any further movement of the road since the 23rd of March? If there has, could we have that information? If there hasn't, can we have an understanding as to why the road is not going to be even made into a footpath? My second question was, can you please advise whether all councillors on the new Somerset Council are aware of the 7 Nolan Principles of Public Life? If not, can you assure me that they will be? There is a reason for that question, which a lot of you probably know why. Third, a resident recently told me that she had written to the leader of the council, the chair of the council, several MPs in London, including the Prime Minister and the portfolio holder of this council, responsible for highways, regarding the closed road. She's never had a reply. I can understand that. I have sent this back out again, and I do know that Councillor Evans has responded, but I just want to know, why have we not had any more information about what's happening? Thank you.
Thank you. Can we start the reply from Mike Rigby and then Bill Evans? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Loretta, for coming to ask those questions today. The B3191 Cleve Hill Watch It has been closed indefinitely due to the substantial risk associated with the cliff instability. Somerset Council initially closed the road on the 12th of January this year, following the results of a geotechnical survey. Since then, 2 further surveys have been undertaken, one on the 16th of February and the second on the 19th of April, and both of those surveys indicate a further cumulative movement of up to 6 millimetres at some of the survey points located on the road surface. The permanent directional signage package was issued to our contractor in May 2023 after consultation with communities. The new and replacement signs will be delivered at the end of May, and installation is expected to commence from the 5th of June. The English coast path at Cleve Hill has already been diverted, and further work continues in collaboration with Natural England and adjacent landowners to assess alternative route options. An economic development business survey has been launched. We are looking at possible improvements to the pedestrian environment in the town centre, including possible restriction of vehicle access to Swain Street car park to create a loading bay to free up pedestrian stroke cycle space on Swain Street. Cosmetic improvements such as painting the exterior of the doctor's surgery, additional planters, etc. And in the longer term, there's an ambition to remove curbs in the town centre to enhance the public realm. Public rights of way and active travel, improvements to current diversions of the footpath WL30/2 running from the top of the B3191 down to the Donkey Field and the Mineral Line are taking place at the end of May, including additional aggregate and improvement to the steps. Evidence shows this diversion is well used and well signed. Discussions with landowners are still ongoing for improving the path on the Mineral Line. That could include cutting back vegetation, surface improvements, considering permissive agreement for cycling. The council is also considering how to avoid drainage issues on footpath WL18/64, plus mitigating safety concerns for increased footfall over the West Somerset Railway level crossing at Kentsford Cross. Further diversions to reopen walking and cycling access around the closure, potential for a further diversion of the England coast path, are ongoing. A key focus of this work stream is to encourage walking and cycling from Warren Bay to Watchet Town Centre during the peak season. With respect to future communications, the council is working on a new page for Somerset Council website that will have frequently asked questions to be updated regularly to reflect the current information. And I think just to pick up finally on the point that Loretta mentioned about, had there been no further movement, could the road be reopened for walking and cycling? There has been movement, but even if there hadn't been, that's something we've been advised is not a wise thing to do. It could be it's very likely to be the case that if and when the road does eventually catastrophically collapse, that could happen with little notice. So it's certainly something that I picked up early on. Even if vehicles weren't going to be permitted to use the path, could walkers and cyclists use it? We took specialist legal advice on that, and they advised us that we would be on the hook as a council if anyone were to come to any harm, walker, cyclist, motorist, whatever, as a result of the instability. So it was a very clear no, we can't be using that road for walking and cycling again, even if there's some gap, perhaps even of a year or more, even if there's a gap between any of the monitoring surveys showing any movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to respond on the point of the residence letter that you referred to, I can confirm that that letter was sent to my personal home address. It was dated the 19th of April. I scanned, it arrived with me on the 24th of April. I scanned it and sent it into the system. It would normally have had an acknowledgement of receipt within 3 days, but because it came via an unconventional route, being my home address, it somehow bypassed the system, and we have learned that lesson, that needs to be addressed. So my apologies to your constituent, and they have now been responded to.
Thank you both. Okay. We now move on to our next speaker. Oh, sorry. Yes, you can. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a response to question 2 and the Nolan principles. I can confirm that all councillors on Somerset Council are aware of the 7 Nolan principles of public life. Members received code of conduct training following the elections in May 2022. The principles are also set out in the members' code of conduct, which forms part of the council's constitution. It was adopted by the council at its meeting on the 22nd of February 2023.
Thank you, Stephen. Sorry for missing you out. Moving on to our next speaker, which is David Redgewell on public transport in Somerset. David, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My first question really is about First Group South, which is the new holdings company for buses of Somerset. Is where are we really with drivers? I've been in Bridgewater and Minehead, as Mike knows, and we've had real difficulties in getting back from Minehead with buses not turning up. There's a regular list every day now of services that are not running, including the 22, the 6 in Taunton. On the X22 to Tiverton, I wonder, or delayed, I wonder if this issue of the driver shortage and whether First is a huge company, it's Buses Services, a local brand. I wonder if we could ask that First put more resources into Somerset by moving staff from other depots or bringing in agency drivers to make sure that we get the service back to the BSIP standards that we all expect. The second part of my question is Wells Cheddar Western Supermare is a key public transport corridor. We do want to link the 126, which is run by Libra Travel, and First 51. Wonder what progress is now happening with North Somerset with Mike Bell and the new Hannah Young, the new executive member for transport in North Somerset, to make sure we try and get this service as soon as possible. I welcome the fact we've now got BSIP money around again and some extra money from the government, an extension to the fare cap for another year and a bit. That raises 250 in the county from November. And my final point is around making sure that planning application and consultation on the Taunton Transport Hub goes ahead, and any progress. We are very, very keen to see work start on the old Taunton bus station site into a modern transport hub for coaches, buses, walking, cycling and e-scooters in the centre of the county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mike Rigby, please.
Thank you, Chair. We're receiving daily updates from Buses of Somerset regarding the reliability of services from depots at Minehead, Bridgewater, Taunton and Yeovil. These updates are providing us with lost mileage information, which is much improved from February 2023, when, as we all know, there were a significant number of cancellations. We're seeing that the missing miles percentage is currently running at just over 1% at the moment, down significantly from the 6% we experienced in February and very close to the long-term average. We'd like it to be 0, obviously, but it is moving in the right direction. Our officers met with Buses of Somerset managers on the 15th of May and were advised that there are currently 10 drivers short of full complement, but they continue to operate with 8 drivers provided from outside the area, leaving them only 2 short overall, which is manageable. With a steady stream of drivers currently entering their training school. We're not carrying out on-street monitoring of services in Taunton at present, as the operator is sharing reliability information freely with us, and we're not in conversation with the Western Traffic Commissioner, as we're satisfied that Buses of Somerset are doing all they can to restore and maintain reliability at this time. For the Wells depot of First West of England, we're not aware of any significant driver shortage, and we're not currently receiving complaints about reliability of services operated from this depot. Just to add on the cancellations issue, it does say on First's app that if you select a particular travel area, in our case Somerset, the app will notify you of cancelled services. It doesn't do that, and I don't in fact think it's done it for years from my own experience. So I've asked First on a number of occasions, and will chase again, for that particular service to be activated. Your second question on the 126, we understand that North Somerset Council are continuing to explore options to either link up a conventional registered local bus service with our 126 at Cheddar, or to provide a through service which Somerset Council would be asked to contribute to. At present, there are no further details available. However, with the recent announcement by the Department for Transport in relation to the replacement of bus recovery grant with Bus Service Improvement Plan Plus funding, the future of the current 126 service, I'm pleased to say, is now secure in the short to medium term. Your third question, with regard to the rail station interchange, the interchange is in place, but the Trenchard Way junction works need to be completed before the buses can use it, so that the buses can be routed past the platform and egress from the new station by the new car park. The works being undertaken by Milestone are on programme and will be completed in early June as originally planned. We're liaising with the local bus operators with regard to the bus stops that will be served once the interchange is operational. The Taunton Mobility Hub is about to enter stage 2 feasibility. Once complete, we will have a preferred layout with high-level design and costings. The hub will include a waiting area with Wi-Fi and real-time bus information. The feasibility study will help our understanding of what other components, such as a cafe, could be included. Public consultation and detailed design will take place this autumn. And there's also going to be a changing places facility being located at the site as well. And that work is being done by a team from major and special projects. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Mike. We move now to Tess Gill, who is bringing us a petition for Cross to Axbridge Safe Park, get the job done. How this will work is I'll ask Tess now to ask a question. That will be, the reply will come from Councillor Roswike, and then I will receive the petition on behalf of the council. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to present and speak in support of our online petition, Cross to Axbridge Safe Path, asking the council to take action to ensure the right-of-way between Cross and Axbridge is safe and accessible to all users. This has been an objective of the parish council and local community for many years, due to the danger to pedestrians of walking on narrow Cross Lane, which is the only alternative route between Cross and Axbridge, and is increasingly congested with HGV vehicles. Axbridge has a shop, school, chemist, doctor, make it an essential destination to Cross and Compton Bishop, which have none. Our campaign was established in 2013 by the parish council, and our first action was a procession of local people from Axbridge to Cross, where we were addressed by Tessa Munt, then our MP. 2016, we presented our first petition to Somerset County Council, and with the support of Councillor David Fothergill and local councillor Bob Filmer, work was carried out in 2020, installing a pedestrian refuge on the A38 and a pavement along Cross Lane up to the entrance to the right-of-way across the fields. This was a big step forward, but we've had numerous reports since then of pedestrians using the right-of-way, including children, being worried by cattle. An Axbridge resident was seriously injured. One field along the way still has no fencing separating the cattle from pedestrians. The other, a flimsy electric fence, easily breached. The grassy surface is unsuitable for buggies and mobility scooters, or for those less mobile, and the gates are inaccessible for such users. Therefore, the steps set out in our petition are urgently needed, namely that the footpath has a firm, stable surface, the stock-proof fencing is installed along the whole length to ensure the safety of pedestrians, prams, children and dogs on leads. Any gates, if necessary, are accessible to all users, including mobility scooters and buggies. We've been told there's a new programme, a small infrastructure scheme, that will focus on the government's transport priorities of carbon reduction, promoting active travel, safety and rural mobility. We believe that upgrading the right-of-way has excellent policy alignment with these objectives. It will stop car use for a distance of less than a mile and encourage the pleasant walk along the path with views of our beautiful countryside. Our petition, which is supported by the Parish Council, Axbridge Action Group and our county councillors, is the latest of many expressions of strong community support. The comments made by signatories to the petition attest to the dangers of Cross Lane and problems of access to and safety from cattle of walking along the right-of-way. As Cross Lane is the only alternative to using the right-of-way, there is no current safe route, and we would ask the council to give its support.
Thank you. Councillor Roswike.
Thank you. I've been asked to respond to this as I'm seen to be the one who is a champion of active travel, particularly on rural paths. And I have my colleague from Highways who is really heading the project with your officers. But I can say from both of us, the council wholeheartedly supports your objective to create an off-road active travel route between Cross and Axbridge. Upgrading the current right-of-way may be an option, but will need the agreement of the landowners along the route. And we suggest that initial discussions are best conducted at a local level to understand the willingness of landowners to engage and support the proposal. Council officers are available to give support and advice to local community representatives on the technical and legal issues that are likely to be needed to be explored and agreed with the landowners along the rights of way. while the petition's being presented, can I personally say that I'm very happy, along with colleagues, to help support the local community on what is a very worthwhile objective.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sigurd Romer. I apologise if I mispronounced your name. On climate emergency, carbon neutrality. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, you get 9 out of 10 for pronunciation. By an amazing coincidence, all 5 questions are relevant to climate change, so that's how it goes. 4 years ago, Somerset County Council and the 4 district councils declared a climate emergency. A number of positive initiatives followed in their wake. And during this period, Taunton Extinction Rebellion had a number of meetings with its local council, based on our worries about the risks from climate breakdown. In particular, we expressed, and we are still expressing, concern around the evidence from United Nations scientists of an imminent and irretrievable tipping point being reached in extreme weather patterns and caused by climate change. With today being the first meeting of the new council, how realistic does it now regard achieving its aim of carbon neutrality by 2030? And just to underscore the seriousness of it, I brought a cake with me. I brought this cake to a question at the district council last year when UN scientists estimated that perhaps it were about 8 years until climate collapse really got serious. I've had to revise it to 7 years today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Dyke, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Mr. Reimer. We are still very much committed to doing what we can to deliver our goal of being carbon neutral by 2030. We have recently commissioned a review of the baseline emissions of the new authority and are now currently reviewing and aligning the corporate priorities from across the previous 5 councils with a view to reviewing and refreshing the climate and ecological emergency strategy and developing a robust and costed action plan alongside that. This action plan and strategy refresh will set out the steps and actions that we intend to take, which are necessary to deliver our aims to be net zero across our estate and operations, delivering a carbon neutral county, ensuring resilience to the risks of climate change and addressing the ecological crisis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to our next speaker, which is Nigel Bean on global warming.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to reread what you've got in front of you, but just a couple of points, really. I mean, like using Occam's razor, shouldn't all new commercial and housing development and social, including council housing, be net zero? You know, solar panels, heat pumps, electric vehicle charging, etc., etc. And what can you do to make this happen in practice and enforce? And obviously, how can you change or impact on the national regulations and legislation? You know, sometimes, and it's not aimed at this council, but sometimes I recall Jeremy Paxton saying to a government minister, saying it's like, you know, it's like saying you're in favour of grandparents. So, you know, it's about being realistic, practical, and meaningful, so to speak. Anyway, I'll quieten down now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Bingham, for your questions, which are formally asked in 3 sections. So if I may answer those. So obviously we are all concerned and alarmed that the news reported last week that average global temperatures will break the 1.5 degree centigrade threshold set back in 2015 under the Paris Agreement to limit the worst impacts of climate change between now and 2027. Set in this global context, we recognise that Somerset Council has a very limited scope to influence this, but we still must take action to play our part in tackling this global crisis. The first step we must take is to understand where we are generating our carbon emissions from, and we have recently commissioned a piece of work to map the carbon baseline for the new authority, new unitary council. Once we understand what our emissions are and when they arise, we can then set targets, plan and take action to reduce and minimise these emissions. We can also monitor progress against this baseline. But we are not waiting for this baselining work to be completed. We have already undertaken many projects to cut emissions from our assets and estates, such as the investment of refurbishing County Hall Block B Block, Yeovil Library, and the recent successful public sector decarbonisation scheme bid, which will look at cutting the emissions from Wellington Sports Centre and Alcombe Children's Home. Work is also underway to review our newly combined transport fleet and then transition this as quickly as possible to a green fleet through the use of electric vehicles under 3.5 tonnes. Work is underway to cut emissions from street lighting through the investment in greener energy, efficient lighting, and we will investigate opportunities for park night lighting where appropriate. Improving and enhancing our natural environment will also play a significant part in tackling the climate and ecological emergency by both sequestering carbon dioxide through the use of natural solutions to tackle issues such as flooding and improving air quality. And I'm pleased to say that Somerset Council and partners have developed a Somerset tree strategy, which will soon be adopted, which has high ambitions to increase the tree cover in Somerset from what is a very low base of 7 to 8% to nearer the national average of 13% and beyond. And I'm really pleased that we have been successful in bidding for dedicated posts to help deliver the ambitions of this strategy from the Woodland Creation Accelerator Fund. We are also early in the process of developing our local nature recovery strategy, a statutory requirement under the Environment Act. This will look to identify those areas of Somerset where biodiversity can be enhanced or restored to create wildlife corridors and protect and support our vulnerable species of flora and fauna. Again, this is being developed with key partners from across the county. Other key elements in tackling the climate and ecological emergency will be Somerset Council transitioning all our services to ensure that carbon reduction and enhancing nature are key considerations within any policy decision making, that being prepared for and resilience to the impacts of climate change, and that we can set these parameters when procuring goods and services or letting out contracts. We will also look to use our influence, working with partners, other public sector organisations and businesses to drive action to decarbonise wiser Somerset and increase our preparedness for all future climate change that will bring for climate change. So in response to your second element of the question, within the Somerset-wide climate emergency strategy towards a climate resilient Somerset, we state the importance of our residents taking action to tackle climate emergency, and that without their support, we will not be able to meet our 2030 climate goals, as the council's own carbon emissions and influence on others is limited to the wider county-wide context. As part of the work in preparing for the transition to a single council, we recognise the need to develop a dedicated climate and ecological emergency communications and engagement plan to support and encourage Somerset's residents to take action to cut carbon emissions, protect and enhance our natural world, and to help prepare for the expected impacts of a changing climate and any extreme weather events. Officers are now in the process of developing this communications and engagement strategy with support from the communications team. The engagement will be built around attendance at local key events to promote the climate work and offer advice, communicating via social media platforms and traditional routes, actions that everyone can take to both save money but also save carbon, and thematic programmes to run throughout the year targeting, for example, energy efficiency and reducing energy demand in the lead up to winter when energy use obviously increases, or opportunities to look at active travel campaigns or biodiversity enhancements. And then finally, in response to your third element, Somerset Council, working with the National Association of Local Councils and the Somerset Association of Local Councils, and through the emerging local community networks will continue to support town and parish and our city councils to develop their responses to the climate and ecological emergencies. We will look to develop consistent and complementary approaches and try to share best practice across all of our town and parish and city councils, and also encourage representatives to join our growing community of environment champions across the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next two speakers cover the same subject heading, which is social care provision and housing development. So I intend to take both speakers together, and then the response will come at the end. So if I could ask Elizabeth Brown to come and give her question for 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Councillors. I speak to you today with first-hand experience as a senior nurse working in general practice. And I'd like to escalate concerns relating to the impacts on local health and social care services created by the scale and pace of new development around Bridgwater in particular. In East Bridgwater, 1,540 new builds are proposed, a 30% uplift on the number consulted on within the current local adopted plan. Together with other developments in and around Bridgwater, this will likely mean an excess of 7,000 extra patients needing to be accommodated by local surgeries already at breaking point and still dealing with list dispersal following closure of the Victoria Park Medical Centre. Local surgeries are regularly declaring critical capacity, and there are safety concerns. With increased daily numbers of contacts, GPs are already pressured into achieving far exceeding BMA guidance. The Health Foundation think tank found the current shortage of over 4,000 full-time equivalent GPs in England is set to rise to over 10,000 by 2030. So problems will only increase in parallel with demand. Despite these facts, Somerset Integrated Care Board has issued statements for planning applications on individual development schemes in isolation, declaring that there is ample infrastructure capacity to absorb additional patients generated. This misleading statement has been based on building space alone without direct consultation with local surgeries and not taking current list sizes into account. Where is the strategic thinking in this statement? And why has no consultation on the impacts of combined developments within the locality been undertaken? Thus far, requests for methodology used to define and calculate capacity from Somerset NHS have been ignored, nor can any accountable individual who made these statements be traced or contacted. Further information requested for the deferral decision for the Follett's Farm development was not updated before the recent decision was made to approve this. Patients are waiting up to 2 months for routine appointments, and one vulnerable elderly lady in my parish waiting 7 weeks for a GP home visit, by which time she had developed pneumonia.
You have 30 seconds left.
Okay, in conclusion, does the council have a moral obligation to ensure health infrastructure is sufficient for these developments? And how can it be acceptable to consider permission for developments in Bridgwater based using these statements? And also, why are some developers not being asked to contribute towards local healthcare provision whilst their proposals will have significant impacts? Considering the ICB statement suggests that no monetary contribution will be sought from these major applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Baker now, please.
Thank you. I must apologise for not attending for a while. Residents have not been heard at Sedgemoor District Council's recent approval of planning for land at East Bridgwater, including a planning application on an ex-Somerset County Council farm for 750 homes. The planning inspectorate's comments on the local plan says the council could not increase to 1,300 homes. The consultation had only been conducted for 1,200. Why was Sedgemoor District Council allowed to breach this to proposal of 1,600 homes? Sedgemoor District Council failed to provide a traffic strategy to create new roads for this major application, despite all the monies from central government. Western Zoyland and Bordrip are crumbling with traffic, along with their surface drainage systems. Bower and Western Zoyland Road are suffering due to the construction traffic from the Strawberry Grange development. The roads have become an unlawful night construction lorry stops. The Western Zoyland Bridge is crumbling, with the National Rail evidently being fragmented from a strategic partner in bridge and traffic management, and the weight restriction was removed. Somerset County Council comments on the local plan was that the Nell Scribbers Way was to connect to Dunware Lane, but it did not seem that East Bridgewater land would be used due to the high cost of developing the land. The Sedgemoor District Council officer's response was to not approve a reduction of 10% social housing. We have residents on the waiting list with medical conditions for over 7 years. The social housing will be 3-storey flats with triple glazing for noise and sound barriers for the privately owned homes. Our most vulnerable in society are to be locked in torture chambers. How can this council resolve its social care and equalities public duty with this liability that you've been given? The Follett's Farm outline permission was deferred for pollution assessment, but the officers allowed the applicant to use Sedgemoor District Council's reports. The nearest monitors are half a mile away, and the average mean figure accepted by the government included several months of the monitors not working. This town has a crisis of people suffering with COPD and still allowed to build a special needs school with a tiny outdoor area for our most vulnerable children next to a motorway. Officers say they miscalculated the bund and are still submitting plans for an additional school near.
You have 30 seconds.
The Follett's Farm planning application received a consultation response from the NHS that no one was taking any credit for submitting, stating that the town's GP practices have capacity to provide for all these new residents to the town and don't need any Section 106 money for the NHS. We all know that our capacity, we all know our capacity of the NHS and GP surgeries are, and in the 2022 Westminster Hall says large-scale housing developments must secure NHS facilities needed. It is the individual practices to determine how many patients or GPs they have. Bridgewater did not get included, and the British Medical Association calls for 10% investment towards upgrading GP surgeries and to clear the backlog.
Thank you very much. Heather Shearer, please. And I have also got Ros down. So
forgive me, I think it's Ros answering this question.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Planning North, formerly Sedgemoor District Council, approved a technical note for developers on health contributions for GP provision. This note is published on the council's website and provides the methodology for calculating whether financial contributions are required as a result of new development. This note is the same method that the NHS used to provide the council with their response to major planning applications. In the case of Follett's Farm, the NHS reconfirmed that there was sufficient capacity within the existing GP surgeries to accommodate new patients from the proposed development, and therefore no additional financial contributions would be sought. It is important to note that the contributions are based on the floor space of GP surgeries, and contributions are for the capital cost of extending these where necessary. The response refers specifically to sufficient infrastructure capacity. This is separate from the wider funding, recruitment and retention of GPs themselves. That is a direct matter for the NHS. It is possible, therefore, that in some cases surgeries themselves are of sufficient size, but there are short-term issues with recruitment and vacancies, resulted in increased waiting times to see a doctor. This, though, is not a planning matter. I will go on and respond to some of the questions, and forgive me, some of these responses are a little detailed, but they are appropriate for the questions asked. The resolution to grant 530 dwellings at Follett's Farm is an outline application. The detailed design and layout will be set out in subsequent reserved matter applications. Therefore, the design and layout of affordable housing has yet to be determined. The reduction in affordable housing from 30% to 10% was on the basis of submitted viability assessment that took account of all the developers' contributions, build costs, and anticipated sales values. The local plan and the national planning policy framework require the council to take into account viability of such schemes. This will be reviewed through a review clause that has been agreed to be included within the 106 agreement, and should viability prove to be better than anticipated, additional affordable housing will be secured. Right. The next one is in response to some of the broader issues of GP practices. The Council's environmental services are a consultee on the planning applications and have assessed the noise and air pollution issues. Where appropriate, conditions are placed on any planning consent. Whilst air quality is an important factor to assess, currently there are no specific air quality issues at Bridgewater, although this continues to be carefully monitored. The SEND school has been constructed with the appropriate amount of indoor and outdoor space. It has both sports pitches, dedicated areas for outdoor active learning, and large areas of formal and informal open space. The bund and the acoustic fence provided are required as necessary noise mitigation. As part of the East Bridgewater allocation, a new primary school is planned, and this has always been the case, and it's not related to the SEND school. The new school will again have the appropriate level of indoor and outdoor space. Extensive assessment of noise pollution and air quality have been undertaken with this application, with the main source being the M5 motorway, but the potential for the proposal to be affected by existing residents in terms of noise and air quality as a result of traffic movements associated with construction and the subsequent occupation of the proposed new homes was also considered. The environmental health officer concluded that the assessment of air quality had followed an appropriate process in order to assess the risk of any adverse impacts, including scope, methodology, and compliance with relevant standards. The officer concludes on air quality that they are satisfied with the conclusion that future occupants of the proposed scheme will not be exposed to pollutant concentrations above the relevant objective levels. And therefore, the effect of the proposed scheme with regards to new exposure to air quality is considered to be negligible, which is not sufficient and which is not significant. Forgive me, I have quite a way to go yet. Following the first deferral at the committee for members to seek further clarity on the Highways Authority position, highway officers reaffirmed their lack of objection to the scheme, specifically setting out the site access from Dunware Lane, and has been designed to accommodate up to 560 dwellings, and the proposed roundabout on the Western Soyland Road tested up to 1,608 dwellings, plus the background growth. In addition, the local highway network modelling had been provided to show the disposal of traffic from each Bridgewater site based on an uplift number of 1,600 dwellings. This shows the number of increased movements are predicted on various routes from the site to the town centre and towards the town's employment areas. Whilst it is accepted that a number of junctions will experience increased congestion as a result of the development, there is an ongoing review of the transport model for Bridgewater, and improvements are in the pipeline for the Cross Rifles roundabouts and at the junction of Monmouth Street and St John Street. It is also acknowledged that the improvements are likely to be needed at the Bath Road roundabout and potentially to St John Street, including a mini roundabout near the rail station. The applicant has agreed a significant contribution towards off-site improvements, and the Highways Authority do not object to the proposal on the grounds of adverse impact on the local highway network. It is noted that some of the concerns are related to the current construction activities and therefore controlled through existing planning conditions in respect of the construction management plan. In respect of Scribbers Way, this has never been shown in the local plan to connect to Dunware Lane. Whilst in the past, various alternative schemes were investigated, these have been discounted. The local plan as a whole, including East Bridgewater allocation, is supported by a transport strategy, whilst individual planning applications are required to undertake a detailed transport impact assessment. Contributions have been secured to provide improvements to the strategic network, including the Junction 23 Dumble roundabout, as well as funding for local network improvements. The final stage of the development will provide for the distributor road that will link Western Zoyland Road to the A39 and also enable Bower Lane to be downgraded to a green lane that will benefit of both pedestrians and cyclists. Final statement in respect of the final question. The planning inspector in paragraph 111 refers to the suggestion that allocation could accommodate 1,350 dwellings. She supported the more efficient use of allocated sites, but as the increase in numbers have not been put forward at an earlier stage, consultation stage, she didn't put it forward as a modification, stating it would not therefore be appropriate to modify the plan in this respect at this stage. Any increase in numbers of dwellings on the site would therefore be a matter for the council at application stage. In line with the inspector's report, therefore, it is appropriate for the council to consider higher dwelling numbers based on a detailed technical assessment which will be undertaken to support further planning applications. It should also be noted that the development and design principles of East Bridgewater increase the allocation capacity to a minimum of 1,350 dwellings based on more detailed assessment. The current application therefore suggests that 1,540 dwellings, an increase of 190. And I will stop there. I think that probably is a fair response to these questions. They are detailed, and I'm very happy to take further discussions with the questioner down the line. Any other thoughts on that? I'm willing to take outside the meeting.
Thank you, Ros. Obviously, the complexities, as you said, needed a detailed response, and well done for reading the complete response. Moving on to our next speaker, which is Simon Peter McKee on the library service.
Thank you, Chairman. For many years, the library service has subscribed to the OUP suite of reference databases and made it available to library members without charge. This suite is an incomparable source of authoritative information and includes, amongst much else, the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography and the Oxford English Dictionary. The OED in particular is a uniquely authoritative account of current and historic English usage. The council, however, has not renewed its subscription and has ceased to provide the suite to the inhabitants of our county. I've been given 3 reasons for this decision. First, I've been told that the OUP suite of programs is little used. In fact, the suite was accessed 6,552 times last year. Greater publicity of the availability of the suite would further increase that usage. The annual subscription is, I understand, £9,600, or about £1.47 per reference. For such a valuable resource, that is not expensive. What is more, simple numerical measures cannot take account of the importance of each reference. Somebody studying a Victorian novel for A-level or a degree may only consult the OED once, but that may be crucial to his understanding of the work. Secondly, I have been told that hard copies of the 20-volume OED are held at Frome, Taunton and Yeovil libraries. English usage and our understanding of its history is changing constantly. No hard copy dictionary can be updated as quickly as an online version. Relying on a hard copy version, even if it were practical, risks using outdated information. It is, in any event, not practical. To suggest that the council's constituents, scattered over the whole area of Somersetshire, might travel to Frome, Taunton or Yeovil every time they need to look up a word in the OED is absurd. Thirdly, I have been told that other perfectly adequate dictionaries are available. This assertion displays a shocking ignorance. There is no other dictionary of the English language which is authoritative as to English usage. Our libraries are an essential public service. The loss of the OUP suite of programmes will be harmful to the older children and young adults of the county as they progress through their GCSEs, A-levels and degrees, and to other adults in the county who are regular readers or writers, or who are seriously interested in English language, literature, history or law. With my councillors, Dawn Denton's full support, I ask that the council reverses this decision and again gives access to this unique suite of programmes for the benefit of the inhabitants of the county.
Thank you. Federica.
Thank you, Chair. So in response to financial pressures last year and for this year's budget, all services were asked to identify potential savings. And one of those identified for libraries was to not renew the Oxford online licence, which included the OED and the ODNB. The rationale for this, as we've heard, was that compared to other online resources such as ebooks, e-audios, e-magazines and e-newspapers, the usage of Oxford Online was very low and it did offer a saving of £9,600 per annum. Furthermore, the vast majority of information covered by the OUP licence was available elsewhere online for free. The full OED is not freely available to all online. However, extracted versions are, and as a number of alternative dictionaries from other suppliers which are suitable for the vast majority of people's inquiries, they are therefore usable. In addition, customers, as we've heard, can still use hard copies of the 20 volumes of the OED at Frome, Taunton and Yeovil libraries. And the majority of the subjects of the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography are available via other free online biographical sources. With the hard copies of the ODNB, we have retained covering many of the more obscure historical figures for whom the content has not appreciably changed. I appreciate that not everyone will be happy with this decision, but we have had to take difficult decisions to look at the best way to spend our money and to spread it across the resources available.
Thank you. Our next two speakers relate to the same subject. This is the Yeovil Acute Stroke Services. So also brings a petition above 5,000 signatures, which automatically brings a debate. So what I intend to do is to take both of the questioners for their 3 minutes, and then we will follow that with a debate. So Eva Bukowski, please, to start. Okay.
Oh, did you hear that?
Pardon? Okay, right. I want to talk about life, death, disability and fear. Right. People's greatest fear after cancer is having a stroke, okay? And if people have more strokes and they have more drive time regarding going to Taunton, then social care will be increased and some of it's subsidised, and that means my council tax is going to be bigger. Aren't we saving money? Okay, so I understand there's not enough staff at the Yeovil place, well, privatisation, eh? That major council, two parties voted for. Anyway, that's as with the closure of St Andrews, I'm getting a feeling of deja vu, because both consultations are similar. People who lived in Wells, their numbers were excluded because
1 minute.
Thank you. Because they're regarded as biased. Well, you'd be biased if you lived in Wales and you were sectioned and you had to move, be ripped out of your community. Okay, so with the Oval supposed consultation, the trust had already decided to close the ward. So the next question is regarding, have you got any influence at all, councillors? Because the last time I kind of got the impression with St Andrews closure that you didn't, hands off, you know. So yes or no, simples. Because if it's no, then please say this in the health and wellbeing reports. Please stop bragging and saying, oh, we're committed with our stakeholders, the ICB and trusts, etc., achieving excellent health outcomes with people of Somerset, yes or no. Regarding coming back to life or death, or, you know, my brother's, 2 minutes, thank you. My brother Zinkman died of a stroke last year, and they didn't get him quickly enough for a scan. And I know paramedics can come to your house and do something. But, you know, I've got friends in Unison, and they call it tarmac ward, where ambulances are queuing outside, saving lives. Some emergency care assistants have £11.30 an hour to try and save lives, right? Privatisation, anyway. So I want to know...
2.5 minutes.
Yeah. So would you be able, councillors, to be able to have some influence and save the ICB and Trust's face by suggesting a moratorium and a solution? Would that be possible? Because as I say, there's going to be increased disabilities, subsidised social care, more spending for the council and so on, and my council tax and everybody else is going up. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant, councillors.
That's your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask Rick Beaver to come forward for his 3 minutes.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to support the online petition that we submitted to the council last week. Somerset NHS Foundation Trust recently consulted about the future of the acute stroke care at Yeovil District Hospital. However, of much greater concern to us is the intended closure of the hyper-acute stroke care unit at Yeovil District Hospital, leaving the single facility at Musgrove in Taunton. This sort of provision is for the initial treatment of stroke victims. It's widely recognised that the first 45 minutes after onset are crucial to the recovery for a stroke patient. Any additional time taken for patients to get to an HASC facility is likely to have significant detrimental long-term consequences to their subsequent recovery with highly increased care needs. Travel from Taunton to Yeovil is around 50 minutes to an hour, and that's not with congestion, it's not with holiday traffic, and it's even longer for places further afield and outlying areas around Yeovil and South Somerset. To this, you need to add the time from the initial onset of a stroke to an ambulance being called and arriving for a patient. 45 minutes expectation is challenging at best, but with a relocation of the HASC to Taunton, it will be virtually impossible for the vast majority of stroke victims in Yeovil and South Somerset to receive timely treatment. There's significant opposition to the proposal. The petition had reached 2,000 signatures within the first 2 days, and it's now well over 5,000 and growing, reflecting the fear of the very clear and inherent risks in the proposals. Yeovil District Hospital, we are told, provides for about 180,000 residents, and there's plenty of building development work going on around Yeovil and South Somerset, adding perhaps in the region of another 45,000 residents. That's an awful large percentage increase. Yeovil doesn't need to have its services closed. It needs a care service like this, which is timely and imminent. It needs to be increased over the next few years and not taken away. Staff recruitment's been considered an issue as to why the unit has to close, but you're not going to recruit staff to something that people know is down for closure. There's a prospect of opening a unit at Dorchester. We're dependent on a different NHS trust, which seems an abdication of responsibility for the Somerset Trust, but presumably they're going to be able to recruit people there. If they can't recruit people to Yeovil, surely they wouldn't be able to recruit people to Dorchester, unless there's a disparate prospect of the long-term viability of the unit. The closure will impact directly on Somerset County Council, with increased demand for care from stroke victims whose recovery has been jeopardised by delay in receiving treatment. We ask that the council takes account of both the views of the local population, as well as the impact on its own services in the future, and uses its influence in the Integrated Care Board to endeavour to reverse these proposals. Thank you for your time and consideration in this. It's a very critical matter and it's affecting a large number of people in South Somerset. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Could you turn the microphone off, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, we will now go into the debate. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry. Yeah, if you'd like to.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much. Just to say, first of all, thank you for both of you for the questions, and I intend to answer both questions with this response. And Eva, I would also like to ask you to accept my condolences for the loss of your brother, who last year you lost, having received stroke services in Portsmouth, but I'm very sorry for the loss that you experienced there. So I'll start off by saying we all want every stroke patient in Somerset to have the best and most appropriate care possible. After a stroke, if the right specialist treatment, care and support is received, people can go on to live full and independent lives. We know that our acute hospital-based stroke services are not currently set up in the best way, and that there are differences in the way these services are delivered due to staffing pressures. It's important that Somerset NHS commission high quality stroke services, which are sustainable and fit for the future, which is why they are proposing to change the way acute hospital stroke services are organised in our area, so that everyone in the county will have the best opportunity to survive and thrive after stroke. The public consultation sought to understand views on whether hyperacute and acute stroke services should be provided at either one hyperacute stroke unit in Somerset, and if that is the right way forward, whether that unit be located at Musgrove Park Hospital in Taunton, and acute stroke services at either two acute stroke services or units, one at Musgrove Park Hospital and one at Yeovil District Hospital, or to have one acute stroke unit, which would need to be located at the same hospital as the hyperacute stroke unit proposed to be at Musgrove Park Hospital. The stroke consultation came to the scrutiny at Somerset Council on the 12th of October 2022. Following a presentation on the options, the committee made the following comments. Looking at the options, the committee wanted to know why there was not an option to have all the services at Yeovil. This was part of a longer list of options, but was dismissed, as it has been proven historically very challenging to recruit consultants to Yeovil Hospital. The committee also wanted to know what the timescale for the consultation was and whether they could continue to influence and debate the findings. There is certainly a further update planned for the Scrutiny Committee on the 31st of May and also on the 3rd of August. This is a decision for NHS Somerset to make after listening closely to the consultation feedback and based on the staffing and funding pressures in the system that the system is currently under. NHS Somerset have not made any final decisions yet, and they remain open-minded about the solution until after all the feedback, evidence and information has been analysed and considered. Hearing the views of people throughout the consultation process was and is an important part of the decision-making process and will be fully taken into account alongside other essential factors such as clinical, financial and practical considerations. Any decision to proceed with the proposals will be informed by the feedback from the consultation. All the feedback gathered during the 12-week consultation is now being analysed by an external research organisation. They will prepare a report setting out what people have said about the proposals for the NHS Somerset Board in due course. I've also been made aware by Dr. Bernie Marden that NHS Somerset has reached out to the Quicksilver Community Group, who have raised the petition and invited them to meet with him and members of his team. Although the 12-week public consultation closes today, they still welcome engagement with the community group. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, now we need to go into debate. I have some names of people that wish to speak on this, and I'd like to start with Nicola Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start by saying that it is such a massive shame that the NHS has been pushed to the point where this is something that we have to discuss at all. And I'm very grateful to everyone who has signed the petition and made their thoughts known. Whilst I'm grateful for the comments of my colleagues and do take these on board, I do just want to echo the concerns that we have heard from residents here today with regards to the distance to the acute stroke unit from the more remote parts of our patch and the realities of the strain that this distance will put on the patients and the visiting families, along with the impact of the additional carbon emissions. Councillor Sarah Dyke and I recently received an email from a resident in Corton Denham, which, as some of you will know, is a very remote village in the Blackmore Vale division. This email noted that whilst there is a suggestion from the NHS that an extra 20 to 30 minutes getting you to hospital won't affect the outcome, the extra 20 to 30 minutes that it would take an ambulance to get from Yeovil to Corton Denham in the first instance isn't factored in, let alone the time that it would take to then get to Taunton or Salisbury or Dorchester. We've heard the same concerns as these throughout our division and beyond through South Somerset, and I'm sure beyond. I really hope that our residents' voices are heard and that the NHS understands the strength of feeling from the communities that we represent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Peter C.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the two speakers did a very good job of setting out the difficulties around the resolving this problem and the long-term harms. I think the difficulty here is that what I see feels like a short-term decision that centres on the Trust's immediate key performance indicators and translates into some real harm to real people, which have a very long tail of costs, which will end up with this Council of Social Care. And I'm glad those points were well made. The main and only suggestion that I've got, if this is to be considered, is that you have to tailor the ambulance response enormously. You have to actually, you can't cover off the transit time between the east parts of the county and the respective hospital that's proposed to be used for care. But what you can do is reduce the time for immediate response, the time from the call to arrive at the patient, by arranging an uneven distribution of ambulances in order to achieve that. And to be honest, that's the only straw that I can see here that's available to grasp. I think it is a terrible shame that the NHS has ended up in these circumstances. I also think it's a little bit disappointing that we haven't got better strategies, but that's really down to the people who write the treatment policies, the medical treatment policies, because it would be nice to try and do something about that 45 minutes to try and extend it. But these are just facts, and this is a deplorable change. If it has to be done, let's see some very positive moves to ensure that there's an absolute minimum of response time to get their patients into the hyperacute unit as quickly as is actually possible.
Thank you. Faye Purbrick.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much to the community group. There's been a lot of conversation around this subject in Yeovil. I'm the local member for Yeovil Hospital, but recognise that this, along with Andy Soughton, recognise that this affects people across the whole of the area. So as much as the hospital sits in our area, it's something that's going to affect over 100,000 people within South Somerset. I'm glad that we've had the support of Marcus Fish, the MP, on this. He's been in close conversation with both the NHS Somerset, Yeovil District Hospital, and we've talked about money, we've talked about outcomes. And I think Councillor Clark mentioned the clinical considerations, and that's something that has been very strongly worded to Marcus Fish from the doctors at Yeovil Hospital, who do a really good job of keeping that stroke unit together. I think it's true. Somebody else mentioned, why would you be able to recruit if there were the risk that this is going to go away? I sat as a governor for the Somerset County Council at Yeovil Hospital from 2017, and there's been talk of this happening. So of course you're not going to recruit people into a situation. Hopefully when the outcome of this comes out, there will be the opportunity to recruit strong stroke treatment services in whatever hospital gives us this this service. But taking into account some of the things that were said in the public questions as well, we've talked about the fact that there's a few less people talked at Yeovil. I think it's, sorry, is that feedback? Okay.
There is a lot of feedback. Can we please get under control?
Chair, point of order, just Councillor Evelyn. If members could move the microphone closer to their mouth. The problem that's happening at the moment is that the people can't hear it, so they're turning the sound up. Then the microphones are picking the sound up, which is going back in the system. So the closer members are to the microphones, the better.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you. So the numbers that we're looking at, I think it's just over 400 in Yeovil, just over 600 in Taunton. So it's not a massive difference when you look at, actually, maybe if you need 400, 500 for it to work properly, send a few from Taunton that are on the mid-border in the other direction. But I think the key thing for us that we need to look at is actually what we as a council can do. We're part of a partnership with the NHS. And we need to make sure that our views are heard. And I know that this item came to scrutiny, and at one of those scrutinies, as the last item on, I think it was a 7-item agenda, it didn't get debated. And all we talked about is whether the consultation is actually the right consultation. But my concern to you and to members here today is actually about the detrimental effect this could have for the people of Somerset, which will then increase the costs for this council, and any savings that the NHS, who are our partners, are looking to make, needs to be looked at in terms of what those detrimental outcomes to people not getting to hospital soon enough will do in terms of the increased need for care and the increased impact on their residents and those who might have to give up work to care for loved ones, and that impact. So I hope that there will be some emotion that will come from this debate, and I'd like to see that that includes some clear actions from us as Somerset Council for what we can do in this. And I have some notes that I'd be happy to share with you, Chair. But I think the key thing is they are still listening, and we need to make sure as their partner that we are giving a strong message. And it sounds from across the chamber, everybody is in agreement this is something that we do not think is a good idea. If we can put together the evidence financially across the partnership of the detrimental cost to adult social care compared to the savings that are looked at by taking out this critical service, I think we will find that as a partnership we can look for a better way forward, and I hope that all members will support the 3 items that I suggest that we do to take those steps. Thanks, Chair.
Adam Dance.
Thank you very much, and thank you for my colleagues around the room supporting the members of the public and the community group. I wasn't going to bring up the government at all, but as our Faye has brought up Marcus, I have to comment. A lot of this is down to lack of government funding for the NHS. We saw that great big red bus a couple of years ago saying the NHS having more funding.
Please let him speak.
And we saw that funding. And I've been a Yeovil Hospital governor now for a year, and I've also been involved with the Yeovil Hospital for quite a while. And actually, we've really struggled to get Marcus Fish into the hospital. On numerous occasions we've asked, he hasn't got back to us. I remember one of the members of the hospital actually saying they had to pull him aside at Remembrance Day to say, look, Marcus, are you going to come and talk to us at the hospital? Okay, so I fully support the residents, and I've written into the consultation, and what we need to do is focus on supporting the residents. So I'm very much in support of that. The travel times are far too far, the waiting times too far, but the biggest issue is the lack of funding which our NHS has got. And I would hope that our MP would actually bring this up in Parliament and try and get more funding for us in Somerset, because public health, which I support here, we're £13.7 million underfunded compared to the average in the country. We're 148 out of 153 councils, and our MPs here in Somerset are not shouting for us, the people of Somerset. We must shout for the people of Somerset and get more funding, because prevention is cure. If we can prevent people having a stroke, we won't need as many stroke units, so we've got to have the right funding. So I urge my colleague over the other side to talk to Marcus and get us more funding. That 13.7 million is much needed here in Somerset. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Thank you, Chair. And Eva, I'm so sorry to hear about your brother. My personal story is slightly different, but I think has parallels. On the 13th of February 2013, we had a town council meeting in the community centre at North Petherton. Alan was there. And so during that meeting, my wife, Karen, had a brain hemorrhage, a hemorrhagic stroke. We were able to get an ambulance there quickly. She was able to get to Musgrove Park Hospital within the 45 minutes, and they were able to do the life stabilising work to make sure that she was able to survive the initial impact of that stroke. However, they weren't able to do the brain surgery. That had to be done at Frenchay in Bristol. They removed a clot the size of a golf ball from her brain. That brain damage left her debilitated for the remaining 4 years of her life, and she lived with that brain damage. But we greatly valued the time that she spent as my wife and as a mother to our 3 teenage children. And although I had to give up work at the time to be her carer, that impact on my family was profound, but we valued, and we still value, every second that we spent with Karen. She was a remarkable woman, and she fought to come back from being a teacher of A-level physics and chemistry with an Oxford degree, and my teenage son was teaching her basic arithmetic, and we were teaching her how to talk through Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 materials. And she contracted breast cancer later, and she got to the ability where she was able, with very limited speech, but she was able to plan her own funeral as she came to the end. That journey of recovery is huge, and the treatment of stroke is such an important part of the NHS. Yes, we absolutely need as quick response as possible. One of the consequences of that night was my son took the decision that he wants to be a paramedic. And I'm so proud that he every day goes out there and takes people in the same position to hospital and makes sure they get the treatment they need when they need it. But it's also that we need the expert response in the room. I hope, and I would implore the NHS Somerset to think very carefully before they withdraw those services from Yeovil Hospital, because that response in terms of time and that response in terms of expertise is absolutely crucial to us being able to ensure that people who have strokes and the families of those people who have strokes get that time to spend with their loved ones. I think we all recognise that this is an important issue, this hyperacute and acute stroke care in Somerset. It's been debated and discussed at the Scrutiny Committee on the 8th of March. I'm sure if it's felt that there was an inadequate debate at that forum, I'm sure that that can be re-agended, and that is something to maybe take up with the chair. I didn't take the opportunity to tune into that one. I had other engagements, but if that needs doing, then I'm sure the chair of that committee will take that on board. I think we have to acknowledge that the scale of change that is being proposed is of significant concern to all our communities throughout Somerset. And our colleagues and our partners in the NHS need to take on board that as part of their consultation. I am reassured that they are still open-minded about this decision. Correctly, we're obviously concerned about the impact on our social care budget if the outcomes from stroke are less good, but we're also concerned on the impact that that has on the families and individuals involved, and that to me is where my passion would be. We're aware that this consultation is closed. I'm aware that our partners in the NHS are open to further feedback, and that will certainly be forthcoming from myself on behalf of this council. So we will be passing that petition on to Somerset Council. I will write and express the views that we have heard here today to our partners in the Somerset NHS Foundation Trust, and we'll be raising it as those decisions are made through the Health and Wellbeing Board / Integrated Care Partnership Board, or to be known as the Somerset Board, I believe. Councillor Herbert, you said you had some other suggestions as to actions that we might take, and I'd be very happy to hear them.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just think it would be good for us as a collective to vote on a number of actions that we as the council will take, and I've scribed out some words that are along the lines of what you've talked about, so hopefully there will be nothing controversial here. There's 3 points, if I may, Chair. So number one is Somerset Council undertakes to make representations to our partners about our concerns on potential risks to over 100,000 residents by the removal of the hyperacute service in YDH. Number two is Somerset Council will also explore the likely risk of costs and additional care needs and economic impact, and look to deliver an evidence-based additional contribution to, although the consultation's closed, to Somerset Foundation on that impact. And three, to further explore the impact and options for Somerset Council Adult Social Care Committee to allow for further debate, I would suggest at the 31st of May scrutiny session, if that is available, and for the option for public to make their representations there on the effect to Somerset Council services. Obviously, we can only do what we can do for Somerset Council, but based on that, we may make recommendations to Somerset, NHS Somerset. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to that? And then
just an ever so slight drafting amendment, if we could add the members of Parliament into that as well. I know you've assured us that the Oval MP is on board. I think this is an issue that affects all of Somerseters, not just Yeovil, and that would be if we can add that in. I'm happy to support that as I hope unanimous motion from this council.
Sue, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I do, because I've actually been looking at what's coming up in our agenda on the 31st, because I wanted to check the minutes of the 8th of March to confirm that we very much, as a scrutiny committee, did raise concerns and did challenge some of the data and findings, and I'm sure my colleagues will confirm that. And also, the only conclusion and recommendation we came to was to encourage as many people as possible to engage with the consultation. And it's good that that actually happened, because at the date on the 8th of March, there was only about 500 responses, and it's good to see that it's finally going forward. The item on the 31st of May actually does provide, I think it's agenda item, just hang on, it's agenda item 8 on the scrutiny committee agenda for the 31st of May, providing an update, but it does not actually go into, it is just talking about the consultation and the next steps and when they expect to, I suppose, the smoke to come out the chimney, and that's all it is. But I'm sure that with the chair's permission, I'm pretty certain that we could actually, and I'm probably speaking out of turn here because it's really for the chair to do this, that debate could actually take place, because there is a slot there to discuss the stroke services. So it would make perfect sense to utilise that existing slot.
I thank Councillor Osborne for a contribution. Councillor Slocum, I believe as chair of that committee, is that acceptable to you?
Yes, it certainly is, Leader. The thing is, the consultation was not going to be finished until July, and that was our problem. So that's why we were going to move the issues, but we're happy to put that on there. That's fine. I just wanted to wait for the consultation. So they asked me, I wanted it for August. They asked me, could I wait till October? So this is going on a little bit. So obviously happy to do whatever you want.
Thank you very much for that assurance, Councillor Slocum.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Eva, did you catch what I was able to say? Was it Councillor Slocum?
Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what Councillor Purbrick has said, with the addition of the MPs. We've got the assurance from Councillor Slocum. It'll come before her committee. I hope that we can move that to a vote.
I know, Sue, you want to just come back, if you could make a...
Can I come back very quickly, please? Because one of the other agenda items we discussed in March was we finally got a report from the ambulance service, which went into great detail about response times over the last 12 months for both category 1 and category 2, and stroke is category 2. And I think some of the findings from that report were rather concerning, even though there was plenty of measures the ambulance service was putting in to address that. So I don't think we can look at this totally in isolation. I do think we need to perhaps look at ambulance response times.
Point of order, I think this is going beyond the petition. I think Councillor Osborne's point is well made, but I think, yeah, we're very aware of a long agenda today, and if members can be pithy and to the point, I think it will help us all to survive today's meeting.
Good. So I think we have a proposal and a second. Could I just throw something in, because I think this is only the second time that this council has had a petition above 5,000, which has triggered a debate.
I think you'll find it's the first time that Somerset Council has. I'm
Yes.
not aware of all the previous authorities.
The councils. So I think that point is a very strong point, that obviously the amount of feeling to engender a petition that draws that debate is significant. And if during the conversations that could come in as part of it, sorry to add.
Are members clear on what we're voting on? Do we want Councillor Purbrick to reread,
Yes,
or are we
please,
happy to? Are we happy to go forwards? Reread. Reread.
So Somerset Council undertakes to make representations to our partners about our concerns on potential risks to over 100,000 residents by the removal of the hyper-acute services in YDH. Number two, Somerset Council will explore the likely risk of costs and additional care needs and economic impact, and look to deliver an evidence-based additional contribution to the consultation. Or that might need to be to Somerset Trust, seeing as the consultation closed, to further explore the impact and option for Somerset Council Adult Social Care Committee to allow for debate on the 31st of May, and for public representations on their opinions related to Somerset Council services in relation to risk outcomes. That hasn't happened previously, and for all Somerset MPs to be written to, asking them to offer their full support to the outcome.
Bill.
Just a small drafting amendment, if that's okay. Rather than 100,000 people, it's the whole county of Somerset.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
So over 500,000 people then.
And indeed, and we could obviously go into Dorset as well, but that's not
All
the
Somerset
expansionist.
residents and visitors.
You're seconding the,
I'm happy to second that, yeah.
Heather, Heather, Tessa and Lee, hopefully this is something, we're
Thank
just
you.
about to move the vote on this. Do you
No,
want
thank you. I don't wish to prolong anything at all, but this is in the, it's in the spirit of getting something which is actually achievable and actionable. My concern is around the second one, and forgive me because I'm processing this by hearing it. I'd much rather see things written down so we can debate them properly, but we're where we are and we want to do the right thing. I only have a question about whether we as a council are capable of looking at the financial costs or implications of an NHS decision. I don't feel like I'm capable. I'm not sure. I don't want to say my officers aren't, but if it was something along, I'd be happy if it was something along the lines of that we would ask them to supply evidence, NHS evidence around what the costs might be. But I don't feel that we could actually cost the consequence of an NHS decision.
Can I just come back to Faye before we move on to another speaker?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Heather. I think what I'm looking for us to cost is the potential increased adult social care for people with lower outcomes. I mean, I'm happy to take out the economic development bit because I get that that's not. But if you've got 400 plus people that are going to Yeovil, NHS can give us data on the average people that will have worse outcomes, but what's that social care cost to us?
Right. Heather, I'll let you come back once more.
Only from one point of view is that I don't know that the NHS would actually say to us that if 400 people, and indeed I've got some background information how they've modelled these things, I'm not sure they're going to say that, oh, 300 people are going to have a worse outcome, you know, and I'd be really worried if they did. So and how can you actually quantify what that outcome might be? The range of debilitation that may or may not occur could be anything from mild to extreme. So I'm a little bit uncomfortable about that second one, I'll be honest with you, because I just think that's an issue, and I just feel uncomfortable that it's not really our job to do.
Tessa.
Mine was exactly the same point about the second clause.
Okay. Lee, you're obviously wanted to come back as well.
Forgive me, Chair, but some of the reasons why we have a constitution and rules is that things come to us so that we're able to process and understand them. I'm terribly sorry, but speaking personally, I'm having real trouble not only keeping up with the debate, understanding what we're being expected to vote for. That's why we ask for things to come in writing. And this is not, I'm sorry, I won't be able to, I'm not saying I won't be able to support the proposal. I don't understand it. And therefore I will not be able to either support or vote against it. So I'll be abstaining and I'll be suggesting that my group support me in that. The reason we have a constitution, the reason we have rules is that motions will come in writing so that we can understand process and understand what we're voting for. I won't be able to support it, Chair. Thank you.
Faye.
Thank you, Chair. I entirely understand Councillor Redmond's position. Sadly, I only learnt last night that we were going to be having a debate, so there wasn't time to put something together in writing. I think we've discussed this is a once in a history item. I'm quite happy if it would be easier for members if we go away, type this up, circulate it, and if you wanted to take a vote later on. But I think it would be sad to lose the support in this room and some actions from this council. This is not normal business because we don't normally have off the cuff debates.
Okay, I come back to Bill.
Can I suggest that we take out item 2, pass the rest of it, and see whether we can get a wording for the second point that is acceptable? I think we're going to spend an awful lot of time trying to draft a motion across the council chamber with 110 people in the room that we're not going to. It's not the way that we should be doing it. And if that's okay with you, I think that's the way forward.
Right, I know this is going round again, but could you read 1 and 3, and then that's proposed and second, we'll move to the vote.
Okay, and happy with that because actually 3 does ask for the exploration anyway, Chair. So number 1, Somerset Council undertakes to make representations to our partners about concern. Start again, sorry. Somerset Council undertakes to make representations to our partners about our concerns on potential risks to all Somerset residents by the removal of the hyperacute unit in Yeovil District Hospital, the new number 2, so number 3, to further explore the impact and option for the Somerset Council Adult Social Care Committee to allow for debate on the 31st of May and for public to make representations on their concerns related to Somerset Council services in relation to the risks, and number 4, all Somerset MPs to be written to ask them to offer their support to these outcomes.
Are you willing to second?
Second, then
Okay, that one, we will now go to the vote. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour? Any against? And are there any abstentions? Yeah, that is clearly carried. Thank you very much for your, let's say, patience on this issue. Because now we've gone over the 2-hour mark, we're just going to have a comfort break now before we conclude the rest of the business. 5 minutes, if you could, please.